Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. I'm Foti and with me is Claudia, and we're about to break it down for you on what's going on in the wine industry today.
Lots of challenges. Lots of challenges, right?
Yeah, more than we've ever experienced in such a short time.
Tell me, so I've known you for what, 5 years maybe? But how many years have you been in the food and beverage space?
Late 90s on.
Oh my God.
So, yeah,
So you can confirm this is the most challenging it's ever been.
I would say yes. I've been through lots of ups and downs. I've been through lots of changes and trends. And the progression of change is, in my opinion, at its all-time highest that I think anyone has seen.
Yeah.
Let alone take the industry as a whole, from production to distribution, logistics, retail, restaurant, what have you. I think that we all in that circle are experiencing some sort of change that's a little, not to say little, but challenging to grasp, possibly embrace the change, but also understand where do we go? Like,
Yeah.
what direction do we go considering all these challenges?
Yeah.
So, for me specifically, and I take myself as a consumer, and we can talk about that as well, but as a consumer, there's just so much that's being pushed on us. There's so much that's being presented that our interests are all over the place. Like, we were at some point a consumer base that enjoyed following a certain on a lineup. Like, we had loyalty to brands before.
Yeah.
We had our go-tos. But I don't know if we actually have those words go-tos anymore, or we don't have the loyalty that we once used to.
Yeah. I would say brand loyalty is dead. And that also has to do with people in this age, in this generation, that the younger generations don't have brand loyalty. And the other thing that it's not because they're not loyal, but they have so many options.
And that's the thing. If we're living in a world of options and we are constantly trying to find the next sensation or the next fix or the next, I don't know, whatever people are looking for, buzz, fulfillment, experience, journeys.
Yeah.
Like, I listen to so many different individuals, and you take different age groups, and everyone's drinking for different reasons
Right.
today, right? So if you're in your early 20s and on, you're either more adventurous, you're being subject to a lot more content, whether it's digital. I mean, the days of before in the wine industry, the authorities, Wine Spectator and Wine and Spirits, and that's what I use myself, and I'm dating myself. We used to actually subject ourselves to information from those publications.
Right.
Fast forward to now, this generation that's in their 20s and on, I don't even think they consider those publications for where do I find the next interest in wine,
Yeah. I don't even think they know what it is,
right?
to be honest. Yeah.
So think about then this whole transformation of information to production to product in a glass. Like, what's going on? Like, what are
Yeah.
we doing today?
I think I'm excited to talk about this from an industry perspective, and also I want to lean on you as to like what it was and what it's like now. But to talk about the challenges we've gone through the last 5 years, specifically because like COVID focused, and also what is changing the way we consume as customers, for our customers, for these younger generations.
Right.
And we're talking about the variety that people are drinking, that brand loyalty is no longer what it once was, and the categories that are cutting into the wine space, which is RTDs, which is non-alc or low and no alc options, and psychedelics, weed, all kinds of things are now
Cannabis
cutting into share.
infused. Yeah. So having said that, look at the bombardment of all these different new concepts,
Yeah.
and they're all doing their part in understanding that when they want to push something into the pipeline of marketing and media, they have means that they can do it far less money for a bigger impact.
Yeah.
Like before, a marketing campaign was a process. Now, the process is digitally can cut that time down and impact a larger group of people so quickly. So how do we adjust to that?
If you're doing it right.
If you're doing it right.
You're doing it right.
But I think that those that are sharp enough will do their homework and understand that if they want to launch a product, they put certain things in place to get it out there, and then you start to see, like through social media, in this new world called viral, if they actually tune everything into perspective, things actually catch on pretty quickly. And sometimes we in the industry, whether we're retail, whether we're on-premise or restaurant-based, we have a tough time trying to adjust to that change.
Totally. Okay, so before we dive in to all the details, this is our first podcast together. Cheers to that. I brought something just to break the ice a bit. Do you want to do something weird with me?
Sure, if it involves having a glass of wine.
It does.
All right,
it
excellent.
does. Okay. So I brought some goodies. Do you want to guess what I'm going to have you do?
I'm not bobbing for apples. Really? Okay.
I'm going to do a spit bucket challenge with you.
Okay.
So this is for any of our listeners that don't know.
Yeah.
In the industry, when you're tasting, right, at a tasting, you spit the wine into this gross spit bucket. And it's a bunch of, this is probably how COVID started. So there's a bunch of wine, a bunch of people's germs,
around,
all swirling in a bucket.
Okay.
You said you've been in the business since the 90s. So I want to see how good you can spit into the bucket and from which distance. Just how far. You're going to, just stick with me. Bear with me.
All right.
So, do you want to spit what you're drinking or spit this stuff?
No, I don't like to spit the things that I like.
Okay. I feel that. So, stand up. We're going to move the chairs. This is in case I don't want to make a mess of this beautiful restaurant. Okay. Do you get what's happening? We're going to start close. And you're going to spit into the bucket that I'm holding.
Okay.
And we're going to see how far we can get until you can't accurately aim. So we'll start close. Grab your wine glass. How does it look? Camera check. Okay. All right, I'll start here. So, let's see. It's already on my pants.
No, that's because you moved.
It's because I moved? Okay, we're going to take a step back. I'll be still. Is this angle good for you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's see. Why are you leaning into it? Just spit.
Is that good?
This is way worse than I was expecting.
Really?
It's already on my wrist. All right, let's take another step back. Let's try one more. Yo, it's already on my shoes. Okay. So
I was
I'm
still 3 for
disappointed.
3. I still made the bucket.
You did make the bucket. Okay. Like, this isn't giving me, like, been in the beverage business since the 90s kind of energy.
That
but
goes to
that's okay.
show you that I'm not a spitter.
Spitters are quitters.
Wow.
Okay. What? All right. Well, thank you for doing that.
My pleasure. I think we should add that to some of our seminars.
I think.
Right?
Okay, so that felt good, but I give it a C+.
Okay. I can try for the next one and get better.
Yeah, so you're gonna have to practice. But thank you for going on that journey with me.
Okay. That was great. Thank you.
And fill up that glass again.
Yeah.
All right. So now let's get into industry topics. So if I were to pick one, you're in the restaurant business, and you're in the retail side. Yes.
Yes.
Is there anything? What are like your main focus points, or what side do you tend to feel the most connected to? Because those are two very different worlds.
I feel, and I'll say this, now that you put me on the spot to answer that question, I feel equally connected because the guests that I touch on at the retail shop, because we host a lot of events, seminars, I get a lot of one-on-one interaction.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm ever in the restaurants and I'm perusing the dining rooms and I'm checking in with tables and speaking to guests, I still get that similar interaction, but on different levels.
Okay.
But for me, what's important is The behind the scenes is definitely the majority of the work that we all do in the industry. But what weighs the most is the results and the reactions of the actual guests that come to dine. So you could do 90% of this work, and then it's that 10% of what connects with the guest that matters after.
Yeah.
Because you can be super knowledgeable, you can boast that you have the best selections that are available to the market because of your own reasons, which is great. And all that work is commendable, but it doesn't really, at the end of the day, also mean that it's going to be connective with the guest who's sitting at the table, or for the guest that's coming into the retail shop, or the guest that's coming to an experience. So having said that at one point before, things were a lot more connective. Now they're not, because there's just too much going on.
Yeah.
But I think that
what do you mean by too much going on?
Again, where guests are being guests and consumers and clients and so forth are subject to just so much information, and they're being subject to so many selections that, I don't know, I can give so many examples. You and I can agree on what we think is the best production based on the criteria, based on the category, but that doesn't mean the guest is going to agree with us.
Right. Okay. So you bring up a good point, and this is what I want to talk about, unfiltered from the industry perspective, is what are we seeing people doing right and people doing wrong, targeting this new audience where people have exposure to all different kinds of categories and beverages, and the way that people are drinking differently now.
Yeah. Well, honesty and transparency is number one with your guests or your clients or your customers, whatever word you want to use. And at one point, the industry was pushing wine based on ratings, based on accolades, based on awards, based on the description that are on labels, and the consumer went with that. That's what they believed. Whether it connected with them or not, they still drank it because they believed that's what
there was like an element of trust.
Yeah. But moving forward, though, if we're pushing people to drink based on those factors, that's not the case anymore, because people are Googling, fact-checking, researching, and realizing that some of these accolades and some of these ratings, are they giving, honestly, are they really the case? And I think it's more about now, being honest about what we're trying to push to people for what reasons.
Yeah.
And that's not easy to do today.
I think I'm seeing, and this is also coming, I'm 28 years old, so coming from someone who is a consumer, and how I buy and how I look at things, whether it's beverage focused or not, I don't think someone rating something and promising that it's good for me doesn't actually mean much, especially when you're talking about a beverage. If something's a 90-point rating, and say it's Syrah from Australia, if I don't like Syrah from Australia, that rating is useless to me, and I just lost money by investing in something based on somebody else's determination about quality of wine. So it doesn't really matter to me. I think what people are looking for, especially in the younger 20s and early 30s, what people are looking for is, how do brands speak to me and my lifestyle?
Okay.
And I would say that, and correct me if I'm wrong or if you disagree, but I've never seen a generation that's so focused on being intentional with their consumption and caring about what goes into their body. So if you're not promoting that it's about health and wellness and moderation, and if it's about promoting that you're using natural ingredients or that you're organic, and again, it doesn't have to be super natural pet nat, but if you are promoting in your packaging, in your branding.
Can we agree that, not to cut you off, but can we agree that 90 points is irrelevant to you as a consumer versus you knowingly that this wine was produced from grapes that were farmed organically, the producer practices sustainability, low intervention? That's what matters now.
That matters more,
right?
Totally.
Okay, so that's the shift that I'm trying to present early on in our episode, that to your point, is that this is where it's at today.
Yeah.
Health is a big thing, obviously, as it always has been, but it's now that anywhere you turn and look, whatever industry you're in, if it's food, beverage related, non-alcoholic as well, there's this whole push about, what goes into the product.
Yeah, totally. I think also the way the interest is changing as well, because it is so health focused now. There's plenty of studies out there that like wine or alcohol isn't good for you.
Yeah.
To a degree. Like, I'm sure everything in moderation is okay, yes. But when it comes to the younger generations, there was a study, don't quote me on the study, I'd have to find it and I can put it in the notes, but they did a study on how many people from Gen Z have tried alcohol. Guess the percentage.
That tried alcohol?
Yeah, that have just tried.
I'm going to say 25%.
Have tried it?
Yeah.
Okay, no.
More?
No.
Less?
60% have tried it. 40% hasn't.
Okay.
Think about that. When was the first time you tried a sip of alcohol?
Can I say that? No. Well,
also culture, though.
Yeah, reflective. My background is Greek, and the Greek culture. Wine was always part of our meals, and maybe my early teens, I've had sips of wines.
Oh my God, no! So my background is German. I think in terms of like my first sip, first off, church. So I had it ever since I was.
If we're gonna do church,
that
we
counts.
receive communion, maybe 2 years old.
Literally, I was literally a toddler. But in terms of like sipping a beer or wine, I don't know, 6, 7 years old. I'm talking a sip. Like actually having my first full glass, I was 13. I can't imagine not having tried it. And I'm not that far in age from people who are Gen Z.
Right.
I can't imagine living in a world where like that's not even a thought. So that's hard for me to digest, and never mind the people that have grown into wine, that have been a part of the winemaking business for generations with their family.
Right.
So I understand that it's hard to try to connect with this younger generation because they quite literally aren't interested in what you're selling, a good portion of them. So how do you sell to someone that isn't necessarily dying to buy your product?
Well, that's the $1 million question, right? And if we break that down, there's not one clear. Or there's not one answer to that. I think it's a series of approaches that the industry, I think, should consider. That you need, number one. So a lot of what I believe wines that capture people's interest over the years has been in the restaurant setting, right? It starts here, and then it moves into the retail space.
Yeah.
People come out to dine; they have experiences. So we'll use that word experience. I think that the industry needs to create more experiences, and whatever that means, to be able to draw people out to these experiences, to be exposed to these products in an environment, because I believe environment is one of the most important elements of an experience, of a product, where if you can bring people out, individuals, to experiences, to experience the product, then I think you have a better chance of winning them over versus the extreme digital marketing strategies to try to get this demographic to try the product.
But I feel like that's working.
What is working?
Digital marketing.
I think it's working to some degree, but not. We'll just wait and cut that out. All right. Say I think it's working.
But I think it's working.
Well, when you say I think it's working, I think it's debatable, right? Because if it was working, then I think the industry wouldn't be subject to so many shortfalls of sales or shortfalls of distribution. I think that there are pockets of success in that demographic, but I don't see. So someone put this into perspective to me the other day. For every loyal wine drinker that leaves life, there's not one fast enough to replace them.
Totally. But here's my thing. I guess part of me agrees with you and part of me disagrees with you.
I'm not leaving soon, but I'm just saying.
What's that?
I'm not leaving that soon, but I'm just saying.
Okay, noted. But I think the digital marketing space is working so well that we're losing wine drinkers to other categories.
Oh, well, that's okay. Having said that, yes, but you're losing potential or consumers. But how long is that consumer going to stick with that product? I think that we're living in a world where we're not sticking around long enough.
Agreed. But if you're good at digital marketing, you can be that next person that people pivot to. And so
pivoting just for a short time is a hard thing for me to grasp.
pivoting for a short time.
Yeah, so like, concepts are coming and going at such a fast rate.
As someone with commitment issues, it's very easy for me to pivot. But
Right. So, and I'm not disagreeing with you. I understand that this is the reality.
well, yeah.
This is the reality. So, from a production standpoint, I listen to a lot of industry professionals that it's also difficult and challenging for a producer to kind of put their efforts into what they're going to do, because it's like, okay, I'm making this great product. How much do I make of it, and what do I do for ongoing?
Yeah.
And that could change for anyone at any given point.
Right. Well, that's where I think I'm seeing two kinds of people building brands in this very challenged time. I would say some people where business is struggling and they're just digging in and they're just trying to push on their partners, saying like, help us, why are sales down, blah, 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 and staying the exact same. And then I see others that are marshmallow brands. They will just warp and shapeshift to whatever trend they see. And I promise, if both are bad, both are terrible.
To your point, I guess you're right, because you see these brands that are branching off and making products under their branding that are not what they were intended to do, right?
And like, I understand we all need to make money at the end of the day, but if your sole purpose is to make money, you will do bad. You will not do a good job making that brand. If you are looking at Mark Brown and see some statistic that red blends are still cool, I promise, start making a California red blend because of some percentage from some study that actually has nothing to do with you.
Studies.
And you're good at making sparkling white wine or white wine and sparkling wine, do not change your foundation of your brand because you think you might make money fast.
Right.
It's not going to work, because I promise somebody else has made a red blend from California for 20 plus years that does it better than you. So I think that's the issue too, is that people are getting desperate and just trying to quickly pivot to make something that they think is a trend.
Of course.
And that's only adding to the issue of us having an overcrowded category right now. People aren't buying as much, and now we have a ton of more products that people can't sift through, and it's causing confusion for the consumer, and it's causing fatigue for the buyers.
And because of this over production, it's not as exciting. So another thing I want to point out that put things into perspective for me in some of my sessions is that we are probably one of the few markets globally whereas we as consumers have access to anything we want when it comes to wine. When you visit other countries who's a wine producer or they're an avid wine culture, they're only subject to their local wines, right? So they're not really subject to what we're subject to.
Right.
Like,
moment of silence.
So we're not subject to what they're subject to because we have this overwhelming amount of options, whereas other countries, they don't. And they will consume mainly their local production through their lifetime, right?
Totally.
And that's what they know, and that's what they enjoy, and that's what they appreciate, and that's what's part of their lifestyle. For us, though, here, if you think about it, we can have a wine that's being produced anywhere in the world.
I'm never filming in Boston again. Say it again.
So we can basically have access to any wine from the world, right?
Right.
So that perspective is like something that I always want to drill that, you know, we have our issues because we have too much.
Right. And you wonder why the consumer can't stay loyal. It's because we can't even stay loyal. We're making new brands every other day because there is this accessibility that is...
And The same token to Claudia, I think socially we're changing. You know, the way we actually, our leisure, our social life has changed. You know, whether COVID, I think about this, if COVID never happened, right, for an example, would this progression and change still occur?
And what changed?
So I saw this personally, and you let me know your thoughts, and anyone else can chime in afterwards about this, but pre-COVID, things were at a certain level of interest, consumption, purchases and so forth. Then COVID happens. Then lockdown happens. And we see this extreme influx of pandemonium of purchases because we had this thought in our head that we need to make sure that we have enough. So people just started buying and started buying and started buying. People had tons of, this is just wine specific and alcohol specific. So we started to stockpile at home, cases of wine, cases of spirits, cases of beers. And we were home drinking.
Yeah.
Right?
COVID was like buy toilet paper and bourbon.
So think about that moment of how we just quickly just shifted as consumers. So now we're consuming more than we ever had. We are just buying whatever we can get our hands on. And then slowly coming out of this, we realized, shit, like what did I just...
I can't drink paper planes at 3 o'clock anymore.
What did I just do? So then we had this like, I'm going to stop, put an end to this. I'm going to change my lifestyle. COVID goes, whatever you want to call it, is behind us. We realized that it's had an impact on us health-wise, emotionally, mentally, whatever the case may be, relationship-wise. And we start shying away from drinking as much. So then that shift throws a ripple through the industry.
Yeah.
And then we're like, okay, you know what? I'm starting to feel better. I want to start socially, drinking again. And I'm like, you know what? But I'm not going to drink what I used to drink. So now I have these other products that are being pushed to me. Low carb, low sugar, low calorie. You know what? If I'm going to get back into it, my re-entry into it's not going to be what it used to be.
Yeah.
So now I'm drinking these RTDs or these seltzers or these low ABV wines, blah, blah, blah. So that has its moment.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't think that's going away though.
Yeah, because, again, depending on what influencer you follow on social media about health, every influencer is going to give you their take about what you should do and what each product has what impact it has on you. So you're going to follow that, right?
Right.
So if you check as an individual, everyone's following somebody different. There's going to be groups that follow the same people and so forth.
Yeah.
But now it's down to who you follow will determine what you're doing.
Totally. I would say from the industry side, I hear a lot of people complaining like, oh, business is tough, wine is tough, no one's drinking. People are sober, or like this whole sober curious movement. Over 80% of the people that are buying non-alc products still consume alcohol in their life. So these people are not sober. So I think what we're seeing in the business is that, yes, sales are down, but we're not losing people forever to consuming alcohol. They're just being more mindful. So that's where I want to challenge people into thinking, I'm soberish. That's what we call it. Soberish meaning like I'm sober, but I'm not opposed to drinking alcohol. And my challenge to these brands is like, make me want to choose to have your beverage when I am going to have a drink. And you can have fun with it. And there are all different kinds of ways where you can work with these low and no alc options to make your drink look like it's worth having. So that's the other thing too, is like people aren't necessarily running away from booze. They're just being more mindful.
They are. And this is just my opinion. I think that the movement should begin on letting, if you're mindful about producing something that's not harmful in the sense of, obviously not alcohol, but the way you make your product, I think that highlighting your efforts on making a cleaner product has more in the long term for the industry. I think that's where it's at. And for wine.
This is what I mean with digital marketing, because these people who are making these non-alc brands, they are not coming from generations of families making non-alc products. They decided, hey, I think I have a good product here. It tastes good. I'm a bartender, or I know how to do really good advertising, or I'm a whiz with Instagram and TikTok or media buying, what have you. They're choosing these skill sets to make a product to speak to people where they know that they can push their ads and their branding digitally to consumers. So as I mentioned, I feel like I see two different kinds of people making brands. One where they change their identity every other day. Another one where they're like, business is down and we're just going to be pissed about it and stay the same. To that other end of the spectrum that's staying the same, I promise if you stay there, these other brands, whether it's wine or whether it's non-alc or whether it's a low alc or an RTD,
Sure.
which is also easier to produce, and the sky is the limit in terms of scalability, so be mindful of that. You don't have to own land. It's more cost effective. If you know how to do advertisement, you've won the lottery potentially if you have a good product.
Right.
So staying the same will never work. If you try and shift your branding to attune to this new audience, I promise it's only going to do better. You don't have to change the product. Change the way you're speaking to them.
So having said that, Claudia, I think that you opened up the discussion, which we can roll into our next episode, about the fact that there's still lots of opportunities.
Yeah.
It's how you approach it, and it's what you are willing to do to make it happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're speaking about the issues, the elephant that's behind us, right? And it's all about understanding that if we accept this, then let's discuss in our upcoming episodes and breaking it down what efforts we can apply to start making these changes.
Yeah, for sure. Glasses half full. You just have to adapt.
So my glass is empty, so I'm still gonna
Cheers.
cheers.